Okay, so I also want to thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this. UAP is really special to me. I know some of you guys, I've met with you when you were just getting started, and I've just been so impressed with all the work that you've done. It's really been amazing. And I have a really personal connection too, partly because my daughter, who's in the back of the room and doesn't want me to point her out, but she's a student at the University of the Arts here in Philly. She just started. And so I care very much in a very personal way about what happens with faculty here in Philadelphia, as I do, as I care about faculty around the country. I'm also very proud to be here to support the Georgetown students as an alum of Georgetown. I'm really excited that you guys have organized. The adjuncts at Georgetown are organized too. And you guys are real leaders for us, and that's going to be, I'd like to show, a really important part of the shifting landscape of higher education. And of course, AFT has been a leader in organizing faculty across the country for many years, and contingent faculty in particular, and I have many very treasured colleagues who are involved with AFT. Alyssa Ann Wiegard, who's the former chair of our board, Bill Lipkin, who was part of New Faculty Majority, which is the organization that I run early on. So it's really special for me to be here today. As I said, I represent New Faculty Majority, which was established in 2009 as the first national nonprofit organization focused exclusively on trying to improve working conditions for contingent faculty. And I got into it as a result of being an adjunct faculty member in Ohio, where we were living. I was an adjunct at the University of Akron. And in my early efforts, I share Alyssa's feelings about looking back on some of the things that I had said and done and cringing a little bit, but also understanding that that was a really important and necessary part of the learning process and my growth as both an educator and as an activist. But when I got started, it was very much feeling like I had to do something because there was no other choice. It had gotten to the point where I could not stand it anymore, and I'm not the type of person to just say, okay, well then I'm just going to leave. I'm a little bit stubborn that way. I cared very much about what was going to happen in higher ed because of my 3 kids, and one of whom is on the autism spectrum, and I was having nightmares about what would happen with him in college without having properly supported faculty. So when we got started, what we wanted to do was figure out what is the most helpful thing that we can do to achieve our goal of improving working conditions for contingent faculty. So we had a summit in 2012 in Washington. We had a large number of folks representing unions, representing faculty who are not unionized, and administrators, because it was in conjunction with the annual meeting of the Association of American Colleges and Universities. And we kind of naively thought that, okay, well, we'll have this big summit and we'll figure out what the strategy is and we'll get started on the work and we'll solve the problem before my daughter gets to college. So needless to say, that did not happen. But the summit was extremely instructive because one of the things that really illustrated to us very starkly was how important and necessary it was really to educate the public about the nature of contingency and and the danger of it. So a lot of our early work was really focused on publicizing the problem. So even though a lot of people who have been active in the contingent faculty movement for a long time have said, everybody knows that contingency is a problem, we've known it for decades, and that's true within higher education, but outside of higher education, people do not know that. And we really felt the need to take that message into the wider community. So we reached out to media. We were able to get into national media. We were able to get more into local media. And so that was really important. We were able to increase the attention to contingency. I think we did a little analysis of something like increased the number of stories exponentially, I don't know, 300, 400%, something like that, just in the first few years. And that is something that has continued to happen. And I know this to be the case because just recently I had a meeting with some representatives of a major national media outlet to talk to them a little bit about how they cover higher education, and they were very much aware of the problem of contingency, and part of the point of the meeting was to figure out how can we cover it better, how can we be more accurate in how we cover it. So part of this shift in the landscape of higher education, and not just the rise of contingency, but the rise of contingent faculty activism, I think it's important to acknowledge that we've made a lot of progress. We always feel like it's not enough. We know that there's a lot more to do, but I think it's really important to stop and acknowledge the amount of progress that's been made. Because if we don't, then we're going to burn ourselves out, and we're not going to have the energy to keep going. The other really important point that came out of that early meeting was the need to organize. And for many of us, we were not well versed in the art of organizing, and we made, NFM is not in itself an organization whose goal is to organize faculty, but what we wanted to do is support the unions in their organizing efforts. So everything that we have done has been to try to help faculty figure out for themselves in their local context where and how they want to organize. So those are part of the resources that we provide. And then the other prong the strategic path that we took was to sort of look at policy issues that we could take on. Because we figured, we're a national organization focused on this issue. How can we address policymakers? And at the time, we felt that there were policymakers who were potentially very sympathetic, and they were. And one of our proudest achievements has been our close work with AFT and the other unions in getting a new guidance letter out of the Department of Labor that helps clarify how contingent faculty are eligible for unemployment. So if you're interested in that, I hope you'll talk to me or come to our workshop or take a look at the work that we've done. The last point that I want to make that's really important about the shifting landscape, and it's not really that it's shifted, but the fact that we're far more aware of it now, is the gendered nature of contingency and its impact, especially on women of color, who end up being at the lowest level, as Ryan described, in sort of the levels of precarity and disrespect that take place. I think it's something that we have to pay attention to, not just in terms of the way that faculty are treated by their institutions, but also within our own movement. I think it's something we have to be constantly aware of, because it's been, unfortunately, one of my experiences that I've had just as many experiences of sexism within the movement, I think, as I have within the institution of higher education. And that's really, really something that we cannot accept, and it's something I think that we have to pay attention to. And it's going to be a hard conversation to have. I had a union conversation with a union brother where I was organizing and was told, when I talked about maybe some of the ways that we have to pay attention to gender issues in organizing, I was actually told to my face in the meeting, you need to get over your anti-male sexism and just move on. We still have a lot of work to do. But I do think we have to acknowledge the progress, excuse me, and I want to just pick up on one thing that Alyssa said to close. I think what we have to do is really consciously move from this idea that has been imposed on us that who we are is a problem, and move to the idea that who we are is our strength, and that we have to take advantage of who we are in all of our diversity and in all of the challenges that diversity might bring to how we organize and how we interact with each other. And that if we do that, then the progress that we have been making over the years, and I do think that it's progress, is going to continue. And the fear that is always there will dissipate to some degree. And one last point that I wanted to make on the policy level is that I do want to say that there has been progress, not just in terms of the unemployment issue, but also in terms of some institutions like the Delphi Project on Changing Faculty and Student Success, which is really actively trying to work within institutions of higher educations to change things, and also institutions like the Carnegie classification on student engagement. I'm on the national panel. I was asked to be on the national panel because of my work, so that institutions that are seeking that classification will now have to pay attention to contingent faculty issues much more closely. So it's that kind of inside-outside work that we do that really helps us make that progress. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to the day.